One Punch Man, a name suitable for someone who can literally defeat his opponents in only one punch. This series is filled with action-packed moments that mostly always have a comedic ending. I have to say, after watching the show on Netflix, One Punch Man was a manga that I really enjoyed reading. I don't know which one I prefer at the moment, but they are extremely similar to each other in the aspect of how there are many similar scenes from the manga and show that express the same message. However, I'll be covering only Volume 1 of One Punch Man, so even though some of the questions that are answered may be different now as opposed to the rest of the series, I am strictly limited to the first volume, aka the first 2 to 3 episodes of the series. So without further ado, here are my personal interpretations of the man who is a hero just for fun. It starts off with an explosion in the middle of what is identified as City A, where we see our first villain who goes by the name Vaccine Man. He is a brawny and very powerful alien and can be seen destroying buildings and leaving City A into nothing but debris. It then cuts to Saitama looking at a computer monitor, watching the destruction. He then says, "Here I go," followed by a whole page dedicated to his departure with the words, "Justice Enforcement." It then cuts to a little girl standing in the rubble, crying for her dad. In the distance, Vaccine Man stretches out his hand into a big fist and crushes the girl. Or so we thought. It turns out, she gets saved from our hero with one quick swoop. The villain then asks who he is, and he says his famous lines, "Someone who is a hero for fun." Infuriated, the villain explains how he was made by the Earth in order to wipe out all of mankind because of how all humans are polluting the Earth. As he transforms into a bigger and tougher looking enemy, he is then quickly eliminated by our hero's one punch. It can then be seen that Saitama is upset that it only took one punch to take out the villain. As the first chapter ends, the second one follows with our hero's backstory. To sum it up in 20 words or less, Saitama is shown as someone with no life in his eyes because of his countless failed job interviews and how he lives a struggling life. The crab villain who confronts him lets him go because of how Saitama's lifeless eyes are similar to his. The crab man then explains how his target is some kid with a cleft chin that drew nipples on him with a Sharpie while he was sleeping. Just as Saitama is on his way home, he sees the cleft chin kid and realizes he's in danger of dying. He then debates on whether he should do anything and supposedly concludes that it's not his business or problem. Just then, the crab villain appears behind, lunging at the kid. However, Saitama gets the kid out of the way before the villain can connect his strike. Saitama then states that he has always wanted to become a hero, and he is tired of looking for regular jobs and not living his dream. While the few next panels show Saitama getting tossed around by the Crabman and looks to be of no help to the kid, he then gets his tie around the Crabman's eye, pulls it out, ultimately killing the villain. It then pages back to the present time, and Saitama cannot seem to figure out why, even though he met his goal of becoming a one-punch instant machine, he is still not satisfied. Now I know that was a lot taken for just 2 chapters, but it's because mostly every chapter in this volume ends and begins the same way. Some new villain appears and claims he is there to destroy the world, humanity, or trying to get rid of Saitama, but in the end, it just takes one punch to end all of their plans. While many overlook this style of repetition as just a way to add more comedy and relatability, the author actually purposefully puts this in to show how there are new problems that arise every day. Just like in our ordinary world, problems arise for all of us every day, and we have to learn to face them and take them down. With all these chapters being similar to each other, everyone includes a similar and different type of theme. Before I even start to name these themes, I just want to briefly mention how the hero's journey has completely skipped over in this series. Reason being is because the series starts off with Saitama already having his power and done with his intensive training. So the series actually starts off after completing the last step of the hero's journey, which is the return with the elixir. A common theme that the author presents through the volume is sacrifice. It can be shown that Saitama gets angry and disappointed that it only takes one punch to defeat his enemies, even though that was his dream from the beginning. Nevertheless, he now states that his emotions are dulling due to his immense power and that every fight he gets into is boring and doesn't excite him. It is also shown that even though Saitama is a hero for fun, the fun part isn't really applied anymore. Not to mention that his immense training, lack of education, and no payment output leaves him in a stage of poverty and struggling to eat and pay rent every day. The author purposefully puts in this social commentary because of how most people can relate to Saitama in the what now aspect. To elaborate, when students graduate from university or even high school, their future is somewhat not clear. They are left in a state of asking themselves, what now? And cannot seem to find out what they should do next. This is a common with all people in the world, which is why Saitama's struggle is so understandable. This also falls into the category of be careful what you wish for, or the regret theme. For example, when thinking of creating a graphic novel class, you can be an amazing English teacher with great teaching techniques, but if you make your lessons boring, give students low grades, and make it feel like an English class, then you're going to expect some negative feedback or judgment and regret. The author expresses that Saitama starts to train in order to fight for justice and escape his real-life problems, but now has turned into a feeling of regret. Yes, he is the strongest man in the universe, supposedly, but because there hasn't been any hero organization presented in the first volume, Saitama is seen as facing his old problems of poverty, and now is facing a new problem, losing his human emotions. Of course, if these themes were the only thing present, this manga would just be a depressing and serious kind of story, making the whole series tense and more emotional. However, the author balances out perfectly by using a literary technique known as a satire in order to make light of dark situations. For instance, the author most of the time uses large panels with a fair amount of dialogue in order to get the story flowing smoothly. Some of these panels will display the characters with their common expression, whether it's a smile, frown, etc. By only changing the shape of the mouth and tilting the eyebrows, it can be shown the type of mood the character feels. Nonetheless, the author uses all types of panels, mainly small ones, in order to execute an image-centric style and dictate the tone. These panels mostly consist of close-ups of the face or very detailed facial expressions in order to successfully shift the tone from normal to either serious, tense, or in this case, comedic. As it can be seen in this page, the veins and eye twitch on Saitama's face show that he is irritated and gives a comedic aspect in his annoyed situation. In the beginning part with Vaccine Man, we can also see how annoyed he is after receiving an answer from Saitama, how his face becomes angrier and looks more intimidating. It, however, does not make the situation tense at all, due to the panels flipping back to Saitama's face. Whenever it is flipped back to Saitama, he can be seen with a blank, nonchalant expression, basically an I don't give a squat about who the villain is or what he is talking about. That is all the time I have for today, folks. Let me know your opinion on this video and Mr. Corazza's graphic novel class. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.